Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of Devil on Your Shoulder, a podcast hosted by myself, LuciKOH. And basically on this podcast, it's going to focus a lot on the creator industry, exploring my own opinions on a lot of different topics relating to creators, my advice based on experiences, and my own content creation journey. Welcome to the pilot episode. This is going to be a once-a-month series where I kind of, go on and take community suggestions. There is a form in the description of every little bit. It's just a Google form, so if anyone wants to offer, topic ideas that relate to creator industry and so forth or anything like that, you're more than welcome to. But either way, I guess getting into it a bit, I've been a content creator for about 13 years now across various different accounts. And obviously, my experiences aren't hugely different from, a lot of other creators, but each creator, I believe, has, their own unique perspectives when it comes to a lot of this, and this podcast is a way for me to share my own to people who are interested in becoming creators, to people who want to see a bit more or get a bit more information about certain topics and whatnot. That's kind of why Devil on a Shoulder has started this year. But this is actually my second podcast I've ever hosted. For a little bit of information about me, I co-host another podcast called the LuciKOH with my friend Oof. Absolutely great guy. I'd recommend you check that podcast out as well. But enough about me personally. I guess let's get into the topic for today. So, topic for today relating to creators, obviously, is a pretty large one, and it's one that I've struggled with, especially in the last 5 years, that I know a lot of other creators have struggled with as well. And that topic is creator burnout, pretty much. And this isn't a thing that just happens to creators. It could happen to anybody. It happens to a lot of people with mental health conditions. And it can really just happen if you're, doing too much at once. So I guess to start out, before I answer, the main question, because the main question that was asked was how to not get burnt out while you do content. Before we get into that, let's get into the causes for burnout that can happen from content creation. And a lot of people will say a lot of people that aren't creators will say there's not really a lot to get burnt out on. And that's not true. But I've seen this on social media a ton, where people just go ahead and they say, hey, burnout's not a real thing for creators because all they do is play video games for a living. And while it is true that there are some creators that do primarily play video games as their form of content, video games are not the end-all be-all of content creation. People fail to see a lot of the work that goes in behind the scenes, such as editing, such as writing skits, such as so many different things that creators have to do. They have to learn marketing. They have to manage 17 social media pages at any given moment most of the time. And I mean, some of the larger creators, sure, they'll have management agencies, but not a lot of these smaller to mid-tier creators have that. They really just kind of have themselves and that's it. And maybe some friends like I do. So a lot of it can be stressful at times. So I guess before we answer the question of how to not get burnt out while doing content, let's get into some of the causes for it. And some of the causes can range from almost anything of content creator-wise. It could be from, say you're a single game creator. Me personally, I'm not. I do variety content, so I jump from game to game. But say you're a single game creator. It's quite easy to get burnt out playing the same thing over and over again 4 or 5 times a week. Or sometimes creators even do all-day streams, and that could be 7 days. Or, sorry, not all day. Everyday streams. And that could be 7 times a week. Now, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it can be very easy to get burnt out if you're playing the same thing every day for hours at a time. Like streaming, recording, no matter what it is. And it can be very difficult to, continually find enjoyment in it. Now, the other sides of getting burnt out, there's a few other options for burnouts happening. And those few other options could be something as simple as just editing. All right, editing takes a while. So it could really be anything in the background of content creation, whether it's editing, whether it's managing social media pages, whether it's, trying to balance content creation or another job even. There are a lot of smaller creators out there that try and manage their social medias full time because content creation is not a lucrative enough job for them yet. So they have to supplement that. They have to supplement their life with another job. And I mean, that's something that I do currently. And a lot of the time as well, this is actually a personal experience of mine, but there are some times where, outside pressure will come down on you for doing content creation, such as friends, for example, feeling like you're prioritizing an entrepreneurial job over them. And that's not to say that it's not necessarily a good thing that people get upset over it. Sorry, that's not necessarily to say that, there isn't a valid reason for getting upset over it, but that can definitely cause burnout. And without naming names, I'm going to share a couple of experiences that have actually happened to me in person and online from, my own content creation. This first one actually stems back, I want to say about 6 years ago. But I had a friend group at one point where we'd hang out pretty much almost every day. And admittedly, I was probably the one who jumped into calls and played games the least because I, at the time, was in college working another job and doing content creation. Versus now, I'm a lot busier. I have 2 jobs in content creation with a gap semester on college. But for the most part, I was not always available to hang out. I was quite often tired, usually after some of my days, and just kind of wanted to lay down and rest because my social battery was dead. I just didn't want to do anything. And some of the friends in that group took it as a sign of me not caring about them anymore. Now, none of what they accused me of was true. It wasn't that I didn't care about them. It wasn't that I disliked hanging out with them. It was the fact that I was just extremely overwhelmed from all of the things going on in my life. I mean, I was in 7 college classes at the time trying to keep up on homework and everything. I was editing my own videos. I was running through streams 4 or 5 times a week. And then I was also working my real job. So it was like, sorry, that was a bad way to say that. I was working my IRL job, not my real job. I was working my IRL job. So it was a whole mess of things that caused me to be burnt out in the early stages of 2020. And I ended up taking a month off of content creation, which ended up being January of 2020, to, hang out with that friend group a bit more and kind of be like, hey, I'm not neglecting you guys. I do like hanging out with you. I do care about you guys, but it's just not always possible because I'm doing... And this isn't a diss to anybody in that group either way, but it was just because, all of them do have their own lives and they did have their own things going on, but there was, for some of them who weren't content creators in that group, because there were a couple content creators, but for some of them that weren't content creators, a lot of it was kind of like, I'm doing a bit more than a lot of you are in terms of work. That's a bad way of saying it. But I was handling a bit more than, just a typical 9 to 5 and then being off would, which is what a lot of them were doing, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But it takes a bit more of a toll when you're consistently working for, hours at a time on footage and stuff. And while you're not directly interacting with people, it can get exhausting just staring at a screen, staring at footage and having to edit down 3 to 5 hours of footage every single day. It gets rough. But I ended up taking a month off of content creation, where I didn't stream, I didn't record, I didn't do anything, just to hang out with them. And it wasn't necessarily a horrible choice, but it definitely sparked a large burnout for me, where I just kind of, I got back into it and I was just like, wow, I really don't know what I'm doing. Because I just kind of I got back into it and I couldn't figure out what was going on or what. I guess it's kind of like just gripping the reins again after a long vacation when you come back to work. And it was rough. It was rough for a good month or 2 when I got back. I definitely felt like I didn't really know what I was doing, and I felt like, I was just going to run into more issues where people were pissed again because I was focusing on content. And necessarily, it didn't even really matter Because about a couple months later, that entire group fell apart. Um, and I mean, none of the people in that group talk to me anymore, but that's a whole other thing. But I mean, it didn't really matter in the end because while it did spike a long few months of burnout for me, that kind of really just set into motion a whole other bunch of things. It never really, had a point to do it because again, it never really lasted past that certain point. But I mean, that's just one experience of things that can cause burnout. There can be a lot of outside pressure from, friends of yours that think you're prioritizing something that you like over them. Which, I mean, again, not to say that the reactions they had were incorrect or had no basis. I mean, again, it definitely sucks when you feel like friends are prioritizing something other than you. But a lot of the time, what people fail to realize is that people have their own lives. Regardless of whether you're friends or not, they should be putting some of their interests first. They should be working on the things they enjoy because again, if they're spending all their time trying to please you, they're not really living for themselves. And I mean, this goes to another couple of incidents that I've had before. I've had incidents where, real life friends of mine would disrespect my content or just like, openly mock what I do. And I mean, I'll admit, I'm a small creator. I've got just over 1,000 followers on Twitch. I don't make a whole lot from the content creation side of things, but what I do, I consider a job. And since I do consider this a job for myself, I will talk about it like it is a job of mine, because it is. So there will be times where, this was years ago. I don't honestly remember exactly when this happened, but I was on a small trip with some friends, and I was looking at some analytics one night, because like half the group was asleep or something. And I was just up late a little bit looking at some analytics, and someone was like, someone basically was in the room with me. There were two others in the room with me, and one of them basically just said, what are you doing? Like, why are you on your laptop on a trip? And I was like, I'm reviewing some analytics from one of my latest videos. We're not doing anything right now. What's the problem? And I think, I don't remember exactly along the lines what he said, but he's like, it's a trip. You're supposed to hang out with your friends. And I'm like, we're literally all sitting in the Airbnb together. Like, there's nothing going on right now. I'm looking at some stuff for my job. And I distinctly remember this being the exact next phrase after I said I'm doing some stuff for my job. It was, they did air quotes and they said, yeah, job, and did air quotes when they said that and laughed it off. And immediately it pissed me off to no avail. I snapped back with something along the lines of like, yes, it's a job. I make money off of it. It's something that I'm planning to continue doing for the rest of my life. So you can think whatever the fuck you want of it, but do not ever mock me to my face like that again. And they tried to brush it off and just kind of be like, oh, it was a joke, sorry. And the conversation never really went anywhere from there, but I ignored a lot of the remarks for the rest of the trip. And it's never been brought up again. It was just kind of that whole thing there. And I mean, there's been other times as well where, I've been streaming, and I've had some IRLs ask me, if I'd want to do something with them later. But like I had a planned stream already or something like that. And I've told them, if I have time, yes. And I've had those IRLs before, during that actually come into my stream and be like, hey, you said you were going to do this with us. And I distinctly remember I said, no, if I have time, I will. So a lot of the time, burnout can end up being, this mess from pressure from your friends. It can be pressure from the amount of work you're taking on. Or it can just be pressure from doing the same thing day in, day out. A lot of the time, this can come from real life jobs as well. But being a creator, it's a much more mocked industry than your typical 9 to 5. A lot of people think being a creator is just playing video games for a living, or just recording, recording an adventure outside and just posting it. They don't see the hours of editing that goes in. They don't see, the hours of marketing you put in, the work you put in to kind of find a niche, a brand, and work through that. A lot of people refuse to see it as well. If you've been on the internet, you've definitely seen a lot of these types of comments where people are like, oh yeah, what do you mean their job is hard? They play video games for a living. And it's like, yes, on one end, they do. But there is a whole other side to content creation that you do not see. And it's the side where their camera is turned off, where they are secluded in an office for like 10 hours straight, editing footage down, and something like that. And a lot of the time, to speak of the larger creators, some of the larger creators don't do that. Some of them will hire their work out to others. And there's nothing wrong with that. It allows them to do more. It allows them to have a bit more of a life while hiring their work out and giving a job to somebody else. And I think that's honestly a good thing. But there's a lot of mid-sized creators who either cannot afford to do something like that or just don't want to. And they do all of that work themselves. Which, again, there's nothing wrong with being either type of creator there. But it comes to a certain point where you are doing a lot of the work. And that can lead to burnout, especially if you have pressure from outside sources like friends, family. Or even if you're just trying to do all of it too, where you're like, trying to go with friends, trying to edit, trying to do all this, and you're not sleeping much. Burnout can come from any of those sources. And I mean, now that we've gotten into the causes for burnout and a couple of my own personal stories on what's caused me to become burnt out, let's go back into the topic of how to not get burnt out while doing content. Now, there's a few things you can do here. The first one, very obviously, is do not put more on your plate than you can handle. Because if you do that, you are going to be burnt out so fast. Because, again, the more you put on your plate, if it's more than you can handle, the more you're going to be doing, the more you're going to be able to, the more you're going to stress out as you run behind, and the more you're just going to, continue to overwork your body, your mind, and every part of that. And a lot of the time, that's just going to cause you to burn out and completely stop and shut down. Which, isn't necessarily a good thing in the slightest. But sometimes it allows you to, take that step back and be like, hey, this is what I can handle, and this is what I know I cannot handle. Still, I recommend starting out soft. A lot of the burnout can come from the type of content you do as well. So, it's important to consider what type of content you're doing in order to make sure that you're not burning yourself out. Now, if you're just solely streaming and that's it, a lot of the time the burnout's going to hit a lot faster than whether you were a video creator. And I know what you might be thinking. How would it hit harder if you're a video creator versus a streamer? If you're a video creator, it is very easy to become burnt out because you were recording footage that could be like hours at a time. And then you have to edit that hours of footage down to 10 to 20 minute videos and then post them and then make thumbnails and everything like that. Now, the reason I say that streaming causes burnout a lot faster is because while you're not consistently editing or making thumbnails and stuff like that, what you are doing is for hours at a time on somewhat like a daily basis or like 5 times a week, you are interacting with a bunch of different people. Now, even from a creator my size who's got a little over 1,000 followers, whenever I stream, I interact with anywhere between 15 to 30 people on a stream. And it's not all at once, but across the whole stream, which could be, 2 to 6 hours, I'm typically interacting with about 15 to 25, 30 people. Now, oftentimes, that can be pretty exhausting because what you're doing is not only are you just interacting with people, you are sitting in front of a camera. You have to remember to be engaging. You have to remember to, be a bit more, outgoing and expressive when you're on camera like that. It's kind of the same as, think of an actor filming a movie. While they're not expressly interacting with people who are watching them through a camera, they are having to express themselves a bit more than they would on average. They're having to do about a bit of that. They're having to play up some things for the camera. And that's exactly what content creators do. Content creators are here to entertain. So a lot of the time, on camera, they play up a bit. And it's, again, not a bad thing that they do that, but it can cause a lot of burnout really fast if you're interacting with a bunch of people at once, trying to play up everything, but also remembering to be engaging, to be, focused on the game, to be getting, clips and stuff like that. And as a streamer, if you're doing that 5 to 6 to 7 times a week, that can be pretty exhausting if you're doing it every day, if you're just, day in, day out running that. And especially if you're, a smaller creator, it's pretty easy to get burnt out if you're doing that, plus a job, plus whatever else is going on in your life. And I mean, especially, if you're trying to, hang out with friends and do all this stuff, on the same daily basis, too. It's exhausting. And I mean, jumping to the flip side of that, let's go towards video creating. Now, maybe they're not interacting with 15 to 20 people behind a camera, but they're doing the same thing that streamers are. They're learning to play. They're learning to play up a bit. They're learning to keep being engaging, because the thing is while you're video creating, you don't have a chat to bounce off of. What you're doing is you are consistently just trying to provide entertainment on your own or with friends. With friends, it's a bit easier because you have people to bounce off of. You have people to roll with, to create funny moments with. But if you're solo, you have to remember to be engaging yourself. You have to remember to do a ton of these things and then play it up in the editing as well. Because in the editing, that's where you're going to get a lot of that value of, people finding it funny, people finding it entertaining, and sticking with the video. And I mean, on both sides as well, you have to worry about analytics, but that's another story. So a lot of the time, these creators will go through these things where they're trying to manage, a real life while also being marketers, being all these different things, and having to learn these hundreds of different skills. And also on top of that as well, a lot of YouTube and Twitch streamers will also just do they'll edit their stuff down into shorts, which also takes a lot of time. They have to make sure they get the best portions of the clip into the short because they are vertical versus horizontal. So that takes a lot of time as well to kind of manage all that into the same space. So burnout can come from a lot of different things, but the important thing about not getting burnt out is taking breaks. Taking time to make sure you're still enjoying what you're doing, and also just taking time to enjoy life as well. A lot of people, especially smaller to mid-sized creators, what I notice is they have this whole grind set in their head, where it's they have to, everything has to be content. They have to continually be creating. They have to do everything as a video. And you can see this with a lot of, I'm not going to name drop anybody. You can see this with a lot of the more toxic side of creators where everything to them has to be content, back in 2016, 2017, we had a lot of these daily vloggers where they'd upload a vlog every single day. And in fairness, I'm not entirely sure if they filmed something every single day or if they filmed 4 vlogs in a single day, but a lot of them were doing these extravagant things every single day, and it was kind of hang on, you don't need to do this every day. Again, quality over quantity, but also it's a great way to burn yourself out and then eventually just kind of go off the deep end, which has happened to a lot of creators where they kind of just got tired of doing the same thing day in, day out, and then eventually they just said fuck it and went all in on this really toxic side of content creating and burn their whole brand to the ground. And it's that's there are some creators who've done that for sure, but at the end of it all, I think my my best advice on how you would not get burnt out while doing content creation is remembering to take breaks, do things in moderation, and I mean branch out a bit. Try and get some people to help you out. If you're able to afford it, hire an editor at least, or maybe just hire somebody to help you cut down footage, or even just ask your community, ask several friends of yours or several people in your community and just be like, hey, is there anybody willing to help me out with some stuff? Because at the end of the day, you don't have to do it alone. I've got a few friends of mine who I talk to occasionally. I'm like, hey, do you guys want to help me go through a stream together? Just to find some cool clippable moments that I can put into shorts and stuff like that. And it works out. And I mean they're more than willing to help me. But also there's someone I have editing for me currently for some of my gaming videos. He's an absolutely great guy. But I have him editing for me because I know that I'm not on the same level as him for editing. And while I'm still learning my own niche and my way of editing, it gives me the time to explore freely while also still putting out video content. So for a lot of it, I think the important thing is just remembering to, take breaks, to take time for yourself. And, as creators, a lot of us spend the time behind a camera, in front of a camera, or at a computer, at a desk, editing and working away on that. So a lot of the time, I think just creators need to remember, take a walk in nature, go on a hike, take a trip, take a vacation. Because at the end of the day, a lot of creators out there will think that, if they stop, if they slow down even for a moment, they're going to lose it all. And I mean, again, at the end of the day, viewership is important if you'd like to make a job out of being a creator. But at the end of the day as well, no one, and I mean no one, is going to want to watch you slowly burn out and watch your content suffer because of it. It is just going to get so much rougher. It's going to get rougher on you. It's going to get rougher on your analytics, everything like that. And people are just going to start resenting the content you make, specifically because you yourself are not enjoying what you're doing anymore. So, in my own opinion, that is why I believe, creators should take breaks and should, outsource work to other people as well. Hire them, ask friends to help volunteer with you, anything like that. But yeah, the one thing you don't want to do is burn out and continue to go through, content as an unenjoyed process. But I think that's all I really have on the topic. I do hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of Devil on Your Shoulder. There are going to be 2 more episodes so far that are planned. This is going to be a 1 episode a month podcast. The next episode, I believe, is going to be on schedules, if I'm correct. Which will follow up in the burnout thing as well. It's always important to create a schedule consistently for not to burn out. But that'll be touched upon more in the next episode as well. So this will be 1 episode a month. It'll be uploaded somewhere around mid-month usually, both on YouTube, Spotify, and I believe a couple other platforms that I've yet to figure out though. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. If you'd like to suggest a topic for me or get my opinion on, any creator industry related things, and this can focus on, creator drama that's currently going on, getting my opinion on various creator topics, or even just asking my advice or opinion on my own experiences, or asking about my own content journey as well. Any of those questions are more than okay, and I would be happy to answer them. Each episode will have a single topic set up on it, so we'll go through it. I believe these episodes will typically be about 20 minutes to half an hour. But yeah, I do hope you guys enjoyed the first episode, and I will be seeing you all in the second during February, where we talk about the importance or unimportance of a schedule being needed in content creation. So, as always, don't forget to check out the links down below, which include just the form, to submit other topic ideas. And don't forget to leave a comment, let me know if you're enjoying this podcast so far, at least the pilot episode, and, if you have suggestions for me to try or to work on, I'd love to hear it. So, as always, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I will be seeing you all in the next episode.